The Orion frontier was a strange and wonderful part of the galaxy. Many star systems shined there like jewels, and alien civilizations lived among rings of dust and beautiful moons. One of the strongest and most respected alien races in this region was called the Valrai. They were tall, strong, and known for their armor-like skin. Their society was built on a single rule: strength decides worth. Every city of the Valrai had training arenas, combat schools, and halls filled with trophies from battles across space. Young Valrai children learned to fight before they learned to read. It was the way of their people. To them, only physical strength mattered. The stronger you were, the more respect you earned in society. In the capital of the colony world, Naphis, lived the famous warrior commander Lyria. She was respected by many and feared by even more. She carried a long spear made of crystal metal, and she had won more than 30 battles. Many believed she would one day lead the Valrai armies across the galaxy. However, Lyria carried a secret that surprised everyone when it became known. She had married a human. His name was Ethan Gray. He came from Earth as a researcher. The humans and Valrai were allies, but few aliens understood why humans used scientists instead of more soldiers. Ethan was gentle in his voice, smaller in size, and always carried tools instead of weapons. When the Valrai heard that their great warrior commander Lyria married a human scientist, they were shocked. Some whispered in corners. Some laughed. Others shook their heads with confusion. In their minds, humans were soft, weak, and fragile. Lyria herself did not know how to feel at first. She respected Ethan's knowledge about technology and energy systems, but she often teased him about his small muscles and slow running. She would joke about how he could not lift training weights. Ethan would laugh kindly, never angry, and continue his work. Every morning, Lyria trained in the arena. The sound of her spear cutting through the air echoed across the training grounds. Other warriors watched in admiration. Ethan would watch, from the side sometimes, taking notes about Valrai combat movements to help him understand their culture. But he never tried to join. He was not built for fighting. Many Valrai soldiers would walk past him and joke loudly. "Be careful, human. You may fall from that stool." "Ha! His bones will break from a single push. He should wear armor just to walk around." Lyria sometimes laughed with them. She did not mean harm, but she believed strength was only physical. Ethan never argued. Instead, he smiled politely and continued studying the colony's ancient systems. He spent hours scanning old energy signatures and learning how forgotten machines worked. Lyria would return home exhausted, and Ethan would offer water and warm food without complaint. Despite her teasing, Lyria slowly learned that Ethan's mind was brilliant. He could fix almost any damaged device. He found errors in energy grids before they caused accidents. He helped doctors improve hospital machines, but still in Valrai eyes he was physically weak, and that meant everything. The peace on Naphis colony was bright and calm until strange rumors started to spread. Travelers spoke quietly about an army made of metal marching across planets far away. They said this force had destroyed many civilizations without warning. Survivors described robotic soldiers with red glowing eyes that did not sleep, did not feel fear, and never stopped. This army was known as the Iron Legion. The Valrai Council at first laughed at the rumor. They believed their sharp claws, strong armor, and fearless hearts were enough to win any battle. They trained harder, but they did not prepare their minds. They believed nothing could break them. Ethan listened carefully to the rumors. He studied every piece of information he found. He read old star records and new reports. Something about the Iron Legion worried him deeply. They did not attack random planets. They targeted worlds with old technology, worlds with hidden archives, worlds where ancient defenses slept, and Naphis colony had older technology buried underground in forgotten tunnels. One night Ethan worked late in his research lab. Screens glowed around him as he studied energy spikes across the colony. Something was wrong. A strange signal was repeating every few hours. It did not match any known Valrai technology. It felt like a beacon calling something invisible in deep space. He brought his findings to the Valrai Council the next morning. 12 tall warriors stood around a glowing table. Ethan explained the energy signals, their possible meaning, and the danger they suggested. But the council laughed. One member waved his hand and said, "Human logic, always afraid." Another said, "We are strong, let them come." A third added, "Machines break under claws, no problem." Lyria stood beside Ethan, but even she did not believe the danger was serious. Ethan left quietly, frustrated but calm. The council returned to their battle planning. Weeks passed. The energy beacon continued pulsing. Ethan worked harder, trying to understand it, but he felt alone. Lyria trained for combat challenges, winning every duel. Crowds cheered her name. Her pride grew and she became more confident than ever. Then, on a quiet morning, the colony alarms screamed across the sky. The Iron Legion had arrived. Silver and black warships dropped out of hyperspace like falling shadows. Their engines burned bright red as they surrounded the planet. Thousands of small landing craft rained down through the clouds. The sky turned dark from smoke. The ground shook from impacts. Valrai warriors rushed to battle stations. Cannons on the walls fired bright bolts of energy into the air. But the Iron Legion ships absorbed most of the shots with shimmering shields. Robotic soldiers landed in huge waves. Their metal feet hit the ground in perfect formation. They marched forward without fear. Their red eyes glowed like fire. The Valrai roared and charged. Claws slashed. Spears struck metal bodies. But the robots did not fall easily. They repaired small damages instantly. Their numbers seemed endless. Commander Lyria fought in the front lines, spinning her spear with amazing skill. She destroyed robot after robot, her armor shining with sparks. But for every machine she broke, 2 more arrived. Sweat covered her face. She breathed hard. For the first time, she felt something she never wanted to feel: exhaustion. The Iron Legion moved with terrible precision. They forced Valrai troops back toward the city walls. Panic spread. Civilians ran for shelters. Buildings shook from explosions. Ethan was not in the battle. He ran through the colony with tools in hand, fixing damaged energy shields and guiding confused civilians to safe tunnels. He worked quickly, his mind racing. He understood now. The beacon signal he studied had called the Iron Legion here. He needed to find the source. In the chaos, Ethan spotted a fallen Iron Legion robot. Its chest was open, wires exposed. He pulled out a glowing data core the size of his hand. His eyes widened as he saw information scroll across his scanner. There was a plan to enslave the entire colony within days. He rushed to the council again, but the building was already damaged. The council members were busy commanding troops. They barely listened. One shouted, "We are handling it! Leave, human!" Ethan ran outside, frustrated. He stared at the city walls crumbling. Sparks flew as robots cut through metal. He knew something terrible would happen if no one listened. Meanwhile, Lyria was pushed back by a blast wave. She fell to the ground, dizzy. She saw Ethan running into danger again, carrying equipment. For the first time, she did not laugh. She felt fear. He kept helping people, even when robots marched closer. "Why does he not run?" she whispered. The battle grew worse. Robots surrounded the main plaza. Buildings fell. Alarms screamed. The Valrai fought bravely, but their bodies grew tired, and their strength began to fail. That night, the city shield collapsed with a loud crack. The Iron Legion marched inside. Fires burned across streets. The sky glowed red. Lyria was carried away by medics after suffering heavy injuries. She watched from a stretcher as Ethan continued working, repairing wires, resetting shield nodes, helping wounded civilians escape. She saw something she had never seen before. Human courage. Not courage of muscles, but courage of heart. The Valrai soldiers whispered among themselves, "How does he keep going?" "He does not stop. He helps everyone." Their voices shook with surprise. Ethan did not sleep that night. He studied the data core again. It mentioned an ancient facility hidden under Nafis colony called the Defense Nexus, A place forgotten by time. A place with power strong enough to fight an army. He decided to find it. And that decision would change everything. The night after the first attack was dark and full of smoke. Fires burned across the colony of Naphis like red rivers, and the smell of metal and dust covered the air. The Iron Legion robots stood in perfect formation in the streets, like statues waiting for orders. Their glowing red eyes scanned for survivors. They did not sleep, they did not rest, and they did not fear. Commander Lyria lay in a medical room with bandages on her arms and legs. Her armor was cracked and her spear was damaged. She had never felt so tired in her life. Even breathing felt heavy. Around her, many Valrai warriors rested as doctors treated their wounds. The Valrai hospital was full. Warriors who once laughed about danger now stared silently at the ceiling. Their muscles ached and their armor was broken. They whispered to each other that they had never fought an enemy like the Iron Legion before. Lyria turned her head and saw doctors running in and out of rooms. She closed her eyes, her mind full of explosions, screams, and falling buildings. Suddenly she heard a voice she recognized. "Please move aside. I can help fix this generator," Ethan said. Lyria opened her eyes. Through the window of her room, she saw Ethan outside, repairing the hospital's power lines with quick hands. Sweat rolled down his face, but he kept working. Engineers were shocked as he fixed problems they could not solve. Even injured Valrai stared at him through the windows. They whispered, "Is that Commander Lyria's husband? He is not fighting, but he is helping everyone." For the first time, their voices were not mocking. They sounded curious. Some even sounded respectful. After fixing the hospital power systems, Ethan rushed out into the burning streets. He activated holograms showing safe routes for civilians to reach underground shelters. He guided families through smoke-filled roads, holding children's hands and carrying supplies on his back. A Valrai child cried, scared of the loud machines outside. Ethan knelt and spoke softly to calm him. The child stopped crying and smiled weakly. A Valrai mother watched with wide eyes. She had never seen such gentle strength. Meanwhile, the Iron Legion continued to push deeper into the colony. Their steps echoed like thunder. More ships landed, dropping thousands of robots into the city. The ground shook with every arrival. The Valrai Council commanded troops from a hidden bunker. They spoke loudly, giving orders, but their eyes showed fear they tried to hide. One council member asked, "Where is Commander Lyria?" "We need her leadership." "She is injured," another replied. The council fell silent. Without Lyria, they felt unsure. Far away in his lab, Ethan worked with the data core he found. He scanned it again and again. Lines of alien code flashed across the screen. The data core revealed 3 important truths. First, the Iron Legion was not random. They targeted worlds with ancient technology. Second, they used hidden beacons to locate these worlds. Third, a final wave of soldiers was coming soon. Ethan's heart raced. He understood that if the colony did not activate its ancient defenses, everyone would fall. But where was the ancient system located? He searched through old maps until he found something interesting, a forgotten entrance beneath the old museum. It led to the ancient defense nexus. Ethan packed tools, scanners, rations, and rushed out. On the way, he faced dangerous streets. Robots scanned the area, firing energy beams at anything that moved. Ethan ducked behind destroyed buildings, using smoke to hide his movements. He was not a fighter, but his mind kept him alive. He used his knowledge of machine vision to avoid detection. He reached the museum. Its roof collapsed from earlier explosions. Inside, statues were broken and exhibits scattered on the floor. Ethan found the old elevator hidden behind a cracked wall. He activated it with a tool, and the platform began to descend underground. As he traveled downward, the temperature dropped and the lights flickered. The elevator stopped at a huge old door covered in dust. Ethan wiped it clean and found symbols of the ancient Valrai. He breathed deeply. "This must be it," he whispered. He used a power scanner to unlock the door. With a loud rumble, it slowly opened, revealing a giant underground chamber filled with strange machines, glowing tubes, and control panels covered in dust. This was the defense nexus. The air was cold and silent. Ethan walked carefully toward the main console. Its screen was dark, but he placed his hand on the surface. Instantly, the console lit up with old symbols. The lights across the chamber slowly turned on, one by one. revealing massive cannons resting on platforms, shield generators hanging from the ceiling, and drone pods waiting silently. Ethan stared in amazement. "If I can activate this, maybe we can fight," he whispered. He began working, connecting power lines, fixing broken circuits, and rewriting old code. Hours passed. The ground shook repeatedly as battles continued above. Dust fell from the ceiling when explosions hit the surface. Then the lights turned bright. Energy hummed across the chamber. The defense nexus awakened. Energy shields formed around key locations in the city. Drone swarms flew into the sky, attacking Iron Legion robots from above. Giant cannons on the surface opened fire, hitting enemy ships. The Valrai warriors looked up in shock as blue shields protected them. Their tired eyes held hope again. "Where's this coming from?" someone asked. Lyria, resting in her medical bed, opened her eyes as she heard the cannon blasts. A doctor rushed inside. "A hidden defense system has been activated," he exclaimed. Lyria sat up in surprise. "Who activated it?" she asked. The doctor shrugged. "We think your husband." Lyria stared silently, her mind racing. Meanwhile, robots began marching toward the museum. They detected the source of the new defense systems. Thousands of metal feet pounded the ground in unison. The museum shook as they surrounded it. Back underground, Ethan turned toward a screen showing the robot army approaching. His hands trembled. "I must not stop." He ran across platforms, activating more defenses. Laser turrets unfolded from walls and shot upward through hidden openings, taking down robots before they reached the entrance. But the Iron Legion continued. They were endless. Ethan connected an old neural interface to a helmet he found. It allowed him to control drones with simple thought commands. He hesitated for a moment. It could hurt him. It could drain his energy. But he thought of civilians, families, children, and Lyria. "I will not let them fall." He placed the helmet on his head. It clicked into place. Instantly, dozens of drones lifted into the air and targeted incoming robots with lasers and missiles. Ethan's eyes glowed softly with blue light as he controlled their movements. The drones moved faster than any normal pilot could manage. Robots exploded in bursts of sparks. Above ground, Valrai soldiers watched the drones dance through the sky. Some dropped their weapons in surprise. "I cannot believe this," one whispered. "Those drones are being controlled with amazing skill," another said. "Whoever is doing this is saving us," a third whispered in awe. Inside the medical room, Lyria sat up, her eyes watery. For the first time she felt something unfamiliar, shame for her past words. "He was always stronger than I knew," she quietly said. Hours passed. The defense nexus fought strongly, but the Iron Legion continued to reinforce. More ships arrived and robot numbers increased. Ethan's body shook from exhaustion. The neural interface hurt his head. His hands trembled with every command, but he refused to stop. At dawn, the museum walls exploded as robots finally broke through. Dust filled the chamber. Metal feet clanked loudly on the floor. Ethan turned to face the entrance. Thousands of robots marched toward him. His breathing was fast. His mind raced. He grabbed more controls, activating last resort defenses. Cannons unfolded from the walls, firing beams. Drones swarmed the robots like angry insects. Explosions shook the chamber. Still, the robots pushed forward. Red warning lights flashed across the screens. The chamber shuddered. Ethan's body felt weak. The neural helmet sent pain through his head, but he kept moving, his eyes fierce. Above ground, citizens watched from screens and shelters. Commander Lyria leaned forward, watching Ethan's fight. "He is alone," she whispered. "Alone against an army," another warrior said softly. None of them laughed anymore. At this moment, every Valrai realized something they never understood before. Strength was not only in arms and claws. Sometimes strength lived inside the heart. Ethan stood in the center of the nexus, fighting alone. He was tired, injured, and surrounded, but his spirit burned bright. And suddenly the legend of a single human standing against an army began. The underground defense nexus shook like thunder. Sparks flew from broken machines as the Iron Legion robots marched deeper inside. Their heavy metal steps hit the floor like drums of war. Ethan stood alone at the main control platform, breathing hard, eyes burning with exhaustion. The neural control helmet on his head hummed with energy. Every movement of his thoughts sent dozens of drones speeding across the battlefield. Each drone fired bright beams to slow the robots, but there were too many. Above the surface, the morning sky turned gray with smoke. Civilians hid in shelters, watching screens that showed Ethan's desperate defense. The Valrai soldiers, once proud and loud, now stood quietly, watching in disbelief. Commander Lyria sat in a chair in the recovery chamber. Her arms were wrapped in bandages and her eyes were tired, but she refused to rest. She stared at the screen, watching Ethan fight alone. "He is still standing," she whispered. Around her, warriors nodded with silent respect. For the first time, not one voice spoke badly about humans. Their pride was broken, but their hearts were touched. Down inside the Nexus, Ethan moved from one console to another, fixing systems with quick hands. His body hurt with every step, but his mind refused to stop. He activated more drones, switched on backup shields, and redirected power to laser cannons. Red warning lights flashed above him. A speaker announced in a cold robotic tone, "Defense systems failing. Enemy forces detected in multiple zones." Smoke rose from burning circuits. Ethan coughed, covering his mouth as he ran to another console. His heart raced. Sweat dripped from his face. The first wave of robots reached the lower walkway of the chamber. Their red eyes glowed and their arms carried energy rifles. They marched with perfect discipline, not afraid of death. Ethan commanded drones to fly downward, forming a protective shield. They fired in short bursts, cutting down the first robots, but more arrived behind them. Hundreds, then thousands. The chamber echoed with loud blasts. Above ground, the Valrai Council watched nervously. They whispered among themselves, "Why can he control so many drones? He is not strong physically, but his mind... He might save us." Their respect slowly turned to guilt. They had ignored his warnings. Now he was saving their world alone. Back in the Nexus, the robots pushed forward. Some climbed walls using metal claws. Others aimed rifles at the drones in the air. Sparks flew as drones exploded one by one. Ethan gritted his teeth. "Not enough. I need to use the old defense turrets," he whispered. He ran toward a large lever near the wall. It was covered in dust and rusted shut. He pushed with all his strength. His arms shook and pain spread through his muscles. He was not a soldier, but he forced himself to continue. With a loud crack, the lever moved. High above, on city rooftops, turrets unfolded like giant metal flowers. They aimed at invading robots on the streets and fired rapid bursts of blue energy. Robots flew into the air from the impact. Citizens watching screens cheered. Their eyes shined with hope. Back underground, Ethan saw new messages on the console. Power levels low. Neural strain detected. User health at risk. The helmet sent painful waves through his head. His vision blurred, but he would not remove it. Without the neural link, the drones would fall, and the robots would reach the Nexus core. Another robot wave stormed into the chamber, firing energy beams. Ethan ducked behind a console. The heat from a beam passed over his head. He felt fear, but he also felt courage. He remembered the faces of the civilians he helped earlier, their hope in his eyes. He stood up, moved his hand on a control panel, and dozens of floor turrets activated, rising from hidden compartments. They fired bright blasts at close range, pushing the robots back. The chamber filled with smoke and sparks. Robots fell, but more kept coming. The ground was littered with metal parts. Above ground, Valrai warriors watched the battle on tactical screens. One warrior placed his hand on his chest. "I was wrong about humans," he said quietly. Another warrior nodded. "I mocked him, but now I feel shame." Commander Lyria's heart ached. She remembered every joke she made about Ethan's weakness. She thought physical power was everything, but now she saw the truth. Ethan had strength of spirit. Meanwhile, in the Nexus, Ethan moved toward a glowing console labeled Ancient Protocol. He pressed his hand on it. Blue holograms appeared around him, showing old defense formations. "If this overload works, it can push them back," Ethan whispered, coughing. He linked his neural helmet to the Ancient Protocol. His brain felt like it was on fire. The chamber shook as energy surged. Above ground, new shield layers formed around the city, glowing bright blue. The Iron Legion robots fired at the shields, but the energy held strong. Cannon towers along the walls blasted incoming robots with giant beams. Citizens cheered and clapped in shelters. A child whispered, "Who is saving us?" His mother replied softly with tears in her eyes, "A human." Back underground, Ethan staggered. The neural strain was too much. His hands shook. His knees felt weak. The console sparks lit up his face with orange glow. He blinked hard, forcing his eyes to stay open. Robots pushed deeper, climbing over fallen metal bodies. They reached the final walkway toward Ethan. He activated the drone wave with a mental command. Dozens of drones circled him like glowing stars. They fired nonstop, cutting through the robots. Ethan breathed heavily. His chest hurt. His vision blurred again. But when he looked up, he saw the city's screen showing civilians watching him. They believed in him. That gave him strength. Suddenly, a large robot appeared, a commander unit. It was twice the size of normal robots with thick armor and glowing energy blades. It marched forward and fired a massive beam. The explosion threw Ethan across the floor. He hit the ground hard. The helmet sparked and flickered. Pain shot up his spine. For a moment, he could not move. The commander robot marched closer, raising its blade. Ethan's hands trembled as he pushed himself up. His legs shook under his weight. He grabbed the side of a console to stand through the screens. Lyria watched in horror. "No," she whispered. "Stand, Ethan, please stand." Ethan reached for another console. He tapped buttons blindly, relying on memory. Giant robotic arms inside the chamber ignited with bright light, firing beams at the commander unit. The explosion shook the floor. The commander fell in pieces. Ethan collapsed to one knee, breathing fast. He felt dizzy. Above ground, Valrai warriors cheered loudly. Their voices filled shelters like thunder. "Human! Human! Human!" they chanted. Commander Lyria closed her eyes, tears forming. Back in the Nexus, Ethan knew he had to protect the core at any cost. The core was the heartbeat of the defense system. If robots reached it, the shield would fall and the colony would die. He connected the system to his own neural energy. Power drained from him, but the defenses grew stronger. Robots rushed once again. Drums of war echoed through the chamber. Ethan screamed with effort, controlling every turret, every drone, every cannon. Above, the sky showed robots falling like metal rain. In the Nexus, Ethan's body reached its limit. His vision dimmed. His knees buckled. The neural helmet flickered with sparks. One last wave of robots rushed him. He activated the final protocol, a massive energy blast stored deep underground. The ground glowed bright white. Citizens on screens gasped. A huge energy wave surged through the chamber, blasting robots into pieces. The explosion echoed through tunnels and streets. The Iron Legion forces outside fell like dominoes. Their ships shook and lost power. Smoke and silence filled the Nexus. Ethan collapsed near the core, breathing weakly. His body was exhausted. His mind felt empty. The helmet fell from his head and rolled away. Above ground, sensors showed the Iron Legion army destroyed. Citizens cheered. Warriors roared with victorious joy, but their happiness quickly turned to worry. Where is he? Commander Lyria stood up from her bed. Pain shot through her body, but she ignored it. She rushed toward the museum with soldiers behind her. They reached the destroyed entrance and ran into the Nexus. The chamber was filled with smoke and broken metal. Drones lay silent. Turrets sparked. Broken robots covered the floors like mountains. Then they saw him, Ethan Gray, lying beside the core, breathing but unconscious. His clothes were torn, his hair burned, but his face peaceful. Lyria fell to her knees beside him. She placed her hand gently on his cheek. "You saved us. You saved me," she whispered, voice shaking. Around them, warriors bowed their heads in silent respect. The Valrai finally understood what true strength looked like, and the legend of a single human who faced an army alone would be told for generations. The morning sun rose slowly over Nafis colony, casting long shadows across the city. Smoke still drifted from buildings and the smell of burnt metal hung in the air, but for the first time in days the streets were quiet. The Iron Legion had been defeated, their ships destroyed, their robots scattered and broken. The Valrai soldiers cautiously stepped outside of shelters, looking at the remains of the battle with disbelief. At the center of the city, the defense nexus stood like a monument to courage. Its energy shields had weakened but remained active, a testament to the human who had controlled it. Inside, the air was still thick with smoke and dust, and the floor was littered with shattered robots and broken machinery. But there, at the heart of it all, lay Ethan Gray, unconscious beside the core. Commander Lyria pushed through the wreckage with careful steps, her bandaged arms trembling. She reached Ethan and dropped to her knees beside him. She took his hand in her own, feeling the warmth still in his skin. "You saved us. All of us," she whispered. Her voice cracked with emotion. For the first time, Lyria admitted something she had never said aloud. She had been wrong about him. I thought you were weak." Ethan's eyes fluttered open. The first thing he saw was Lyria's face, pale and worried, framed by her cracked armor. He tried to speak, but his voice was weak. Humans have power," he whispered. His lips curved into a tired smile. Lyria shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, Ethan, you have something stronger than power. You have courage and a mind that can see what others cannot. That is strength." Around them, Valrai warriors entered the Nexus. They looked at Ethan with a mixture of awe and shame. Many had mocked humans before, including Lyria herself. Now they bowed their heads. A tall warrior stepped forward. "Ethan Gray," he said in a deep voice. "We have always believed strength came from our bodies. You have shown us. Strength comes from heart and mind. You have earned our respect." Other soldiers nodded, some with tears in their eyes. A young warrior added, "We will tell everyone in the colony. Your courage saved our people, saved Nafis." Ethan tried to speak again, but his body was exhausted. He had spent hours controlling drones, turrets, and energy systems. His muscles ached. His mind was strained, and yet he felt a quiet satisfaction. "Let me help you," Lyria said softly, holding his hand. "Come back to the medics. We need you alive." Together they carried Ethan to the medics stationed at the entrance. He was placed in a healing chamber, and machines began repairing the small injuries he had sustained. Lyria remained by his side, watching every movement, silently promising she would never underestimate him again. Outside the Nexus, the citizens of Nafis colony began to emerge. Children ran through the streets, laughing with joy for the first time in weeks. Families embraced, crying and thanking the Valrai soldiers and the mysterious human hero. News screens displayed images of the destroyed Iron Legion ships and scattered robots. The city buzzed with relief. The Valrai Council convened in the council hall, a place usually filled with confident voices and commands. This time silence ruled. They had witnessed Ethan's courage, and they knew their old ideas about strength were flawed. One council member spoke, voice trembling. "We mocked the human. We ignored his warnings, and yet he has saved us all. This is not just strength of arms, this is strength of will." The leader of the council nodded. "He shall be honored. A human has proven himself greater than many of our strongest warriors. Let it be known that courage and intelligence are as mighty as claws and armor." A ceremony was held that afternoon. Ethan, still weak but awake, was carried through the city on a platform. Citizens cheered as he passed. Valrai soldiers saluted him, some bowing their heads. Commander Lyria stood beside him, her hand in his, proudly introducing him to everyone. "This is my husband," she said, voice steady and full of pride. "A man who faced an army alone and saved our home. He is not weak. He is strong in ways we have only begun to understand." The crowd erupted in applause. For the first time, humans across the colony were not only tolerated, they were celebrated. Children looked at him with wide eyes, dreaming that maybe one day they could be as brave. In the days that followed, Nafis colony began to rebuild. Buildings were repaired, walls were strengthened, and new energy grids were installed. But more importantly, a new respect for human knowledge and courage had been established. Humans and Valrai began training together, learning from each other. Strength was no longer measured only by muscle or claw. It was measured by heart, mind, and perseverance. Ethan spent his days helping repair ancient technology and teaching humans and Valrai alike about the defense nexus. He was gentle, patient, and kind, but his eyes held a quiet determination. No one would forget how one man had stood against an entire army and lived to save them all. Lyria stayed by his side. She trained again, not just to fight, but to learn from Ethan's strategic mind. She realized that physical power alone could not win battles against enemies like the Iron Legion. Courage, intelligence, and quick thinking were just as important. One evening, as the sun set over the rebuilt city, Lyria and Ethan walked through the streets. The air was calm and the sky glowed orange and pink. Children played along the sidewalks and the citizens waved to them. Lyria squeezed Ethan's hand. "You know," she said softly, "I used to mock you. I thought you were weak." Ethan smiled, his hand resting on hers. "I know, and I never minded. waited for the right time to show what humans can do. Lyria laughed lightly. You certainly did. And now everyone knows it. Ethan looked out at the city, watching the smoke from fires fade into the sky. It was not just me. Every person I helped, every life we saved, it matters. Strength is not about being alone, it is about making a difference together or alone. She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. I will never forget this lesson, and I will never doubt your strength again. The next week, the Valrai Council awarded Ethan the Star of Unity, their highest honor for courage and service. Warriors and citizens alike celebrated. Children drew pictures of Ethan fighting drones and robots, telling stories about the human who saved their world alone. Even the soldiers who had laughed at him before now approached him with respect. They asked questions about strategy, about courage, and about human ways of thinking. Ethan shared his knowledge patiently, smiling quietly as they learned. The legend of Ethan Gray grew across the Orion frontier. Stories spread to neighboring colonies and planets. Humans were no longer seen as fragile. They were respected, admired, and valued for their courage and intelligence. And for Commander Lyria, every day became a reminder that strength was more than muscle. She held Ethan's hand as they watched the stars at night, proud not just of the man beside her, but of the truth he had revealed to an entire alien society. True strength comes from heart, mind, and spirit. The galaxy had learned it that day. And whenever a human stood alone facing impossible odds, aliens whispered a new warning. Do not underestimate them. Their courage can move mountains. Ethan Gray smiled softly as he looked at the stars, exhausted but content. Lyria leaned on his shoulder, and together they watched the galaxy, ready for the challenges ahead. They had faced the impossible, and humanity had proven once again that courage and determination could triumph over any enemy. Naphis colony had survived. The Iron Legion was defeated, and the legend of the human who stood alone against an army would be remembered forever.